The first thing Trenton Barley noticed when he stepped into the Interplanetary Cultural Exchange Auditorium was that every seat was taken by aliens. Not one human in sight, unless he counted the security guards stationed at the back chewing gum like they were bored out of their minds. The creatures in the audience varied wildly. Tall, short, scaled, feathered, glistening, translucent. Some radiated an ambient hum, while others gave off the faint smell of ozone or sweet mold. All of them had eyes or whatever passed for eyes locked on him. He adjusted his jacket and tried to ignore the way the temperature in the room seemed to fluctuate with each breath he took. His fingers tugged at the hem of his sleeve, revealing the edge of his tattoo, a coiled serpent wrapped around a rusted anchor on his forearm. A voice crackled through the overhead speakers. "Please stand by for the guest demonstration. Human subject has arrived." One of the aliens, tall and almost avian, rose from its seat in the front row and approached the center stage platform. It wore a slim robe of what looked like liquid glass and introduced itself with a bow. "I am Professor Nock, coordinator of xenopsychology and pain response studies. Today's demonstration is part of our ongoing curriculum titled Biological Thresholds and the Aversion Paradigm." Trenton raised an eyebrow. "Sounds fancy. I'm just here to get a tattoo." Nock turned to the audience. Humans as a species are widely regarded as pain avoidant. They rely heavily on sedation, numbing agents, and external devices to reduce suffering. However, recent field reports have raised questions about the consistency of this behavior. Another alien, shorter and covered in iridescent plates, raised one appendage. "Is it true humans will intentionally damage their skin for artistic purposes?" Nock turned to Trenton. "Will you confirm this?" Trenton unrolled his sleeve and held out his arm. "Yeah, I've got 4 already. Today's number 5. A ripple of murmurs spread through the auditorium. Trenton caught a few phrases through his earpiece translator. "Self-inflicted dermal trauma? Non-functional injury? Without anesthetics?" The tattoo artist, also human, a burly guy with a Bluetooth speaker and a box of ink cartridges, entered from the side. He nodded at Trenton before setting up. "You ready for this?" Trenton sat down in the chair and leaned back. "As I'll ever be." The buzz of the tattoo needle filled the air, sharp and mechanical. Trenton barely flinched as the needle pierced his skin again and again, buzzing like a wasp on overdrive. He clenched his jaw, but his body remained still. The auditorium fell silent except for the hum of the needle. Professor Nock stepped closer, peering at Trenton's face. "You are not sedated?" "Nope. Pain receptors have not been disabled?" Trenton shook his head. "Still active. And you are not undergoing emotional distress?" Trenton grunted as the artist hit a tender nerve near his bicep. "It's uncomfortable, sure. But distress? Nah." Another alien, this one with bioluminescent tendrils, rose from the audience. "Then why do it?" Trenton glanced at the half-finished design on the monitor next to the chair. A phoenix rising from a cracked moon. "Because it means something to me. And because I can." The artist paused to switch needles. "You want a break?" Trenton waved him off. "Keep going." Professor Nock turned to the crowd. "Observe. There is no outward sign of panic. No screams. No attempts to flee. Pain is present, yet tolerated voluntarily." A deep vibration came from the back rows. It took Trenton a moment to realize it was laughter or the alien equivalent. Nock looked puzzled. "Is this common?" The artist shrugged. "Depends on the person. Some people cry, some faint. Some, like Trenton here, just grit their teeth and ride it out." Trenton chuckled. "I've had worse." Nock tilted its head. "Worse? Elaborate." Trenton leaned back. "Got bit by a copperhead when I was 17. Broke my collarbone on a mountain trail last year. Had kidney stones once. That was a fun week." The audience murmured again. One of the creatures turned to its neighbor, whispering something that didn't translate cleanly. Nock raised a hand. "You endured these events without sedation as well?" Trenton nodded. "Some of it, yeah. Not by choice, though. Sometimes help takes a while to get there." I do not understand, Nock said. Why risk unnecessary damage? Why not avoid all pain entirely? Trenton smiled, though it was tight. Because life doesn't work that way. You can't avoid pain. You can only choose what pain is worth it. The artist finished the final lines, wiped down the area, and stood back. All done. Trenton stood slowly, flexing his arm. The skin was red and a little swollen, but the image was clear and sharp. He turned to the crowd and held it up. The room was dead silent. Then came a single clap, slow and deliberate, from the back of the room. One of the security guards, a lanky guy with a buzz cut, gave Trenton a nod. I've seen Marines cry getting their ribs tattooed, he said. You're a freak, man. Trenton laughed. Appreciate it. Professor Nock approached him again. Would you be willing to answer additional questions for our research cohort? Trenton hesitated. Depends. Am I getting paid? Nock blinked. Probably. Reimbursement has been arranged. Then sure. Fire away. They moved to a smaller room offstage where a round table of aliens waited, each with a data pad or some kind of recording device. Trenton sat down, sipped from a bottle of water, and prepared for the barrage. The first question came fast. Do you receive social status from enduring pain? Trenton frowned. Not really. Some people think it's cool, but it's not about that. Another asked, is it part of a religious or ritualistic practice? Not for me. Some do it for cultural reasons, but mine's personal. A tall, gelatinous being leaned forward. You say you have had worse. What quantifies worse for a human? Trenton scratched his chin. Pain that makes you question if you'll even get through it. Stuff that leaves a mark not just on your body, but on your brain. Nock nodded. This is consistent with recent psychological models. But we were taught humans are fragile. That pain incapacitates them. Trenton sighed. We are fragile. I mean, you drop me from a 2-story building, I'll probably break something. But we're also stubborn as hell. A sudden alarm blared through the intercom, startling everyone in the room. Emergency medical request sector 5 Xeno student injury during simulation. Without thinking, Trenton stood. Where's sector 5? One of the guards held the door. This way. Trenton followed the guard down a corridor and into a simulation chamber where a young alien lay writhing on the floor, its leg bent at an unnatural angle. A small group of students stood nearby, frozen. What happened? Trenton asked. Obstacle course malfunction, the instructor said. It miscalculated weight distribution. His limb was crushed under a falling beam. The alien cried out again, its skin shifting color erratically. Trenton knelt beside it, careful not to touch. Has medical been called? They're en route. The alien looked at him, trembling. It hurts. I know, Trenton said. Hang on. Help's coming. The students watched as Trenton stayed beside the injured one, talking calmly, keeping it focused, guiding it through breathing until the medics arrived. When they lifted the alien onto a stretcher, it grabbed Trenton's wrist. Why didn't you leave? Trenton shook his head. Nobody should be alone when they're in pain. Later, back in the observation room, Professor Nock approached him again. You endured pain without sedation. You stayed with another who was in pain. You do not avoid suffering. Trenton looked at him. We don't chase it either. But when it shows up, we deal with it. Nock seemed to process that for a long moment. You have redefined our understanding of your species. Trenton stretched his arm, wincing a bit. We're still figuring ourselves out too. The professor placed a hand over his own chest. Thank you, Trenton Barley. Today you have taught more than a textbook ever could. Trenton smiled. Glad I could help. Now, if you don't mind, I'm gonna go find an ice pack and a sandwich. Trenton's arm throbbed by the time the briefing room lights dimmed. He hadn't expected to be ushered directly from the first aid wing into a panel discussion, but apparently word traveled fast on the Interplanetary Cultural Exchange campus. The audience was smaller this time, maybe 30 aliens seated around a crescent-shaped table, many of them with limbs coiled or tucked in academic postures. A few clicked styluses against their datapads. Others blinked patterns into recorders. No translator was needed now. Nock had arranged a live translation stream that flowed directly into Trenton's earpiece. He flexed his fingers subtly against the arm of his chair, testing for stiffness. The fresh ink was still covered in plastic film, taped down at the edges. It itched like hell. A thin, pale blue creature with a crown of twitching cilia leaned forward. "We have reviewed the footage from your previous demonstration. Your cardiovascular response remained within a stable range. However, your skin registered micro-muscle contractions consistent with discomfort." "No surprise there," Trenton said, adjusting his seat. "Getting a needle stabbed into you a few thousand times isn't exactly a spa day. You voluntarily subjected yourself to thousands of punctures," another alien said, this one folded in layers of soft, translucent folds. "Can you articulate the reward mechanism in such behavior? You ever finish something hard and just feel good about it?" Trenton asked. "Like not because someone gave you a medal, but because you earned it?" Several heads tilted simultaneously. One of the creatures emitted a low-frequency chime. Knock, seated to Trenton's right, translated. "They are unfamiliar with self-imposed hardship as a source of satisfaction." Trenton looked around the table. "You don't have any kind of challenges? Things that push you beyond your comfort zone?" "We undergo simulations for skill development," the blue creature said. "But failure is not permitted. It would result in cellular degradation for many of us." "That's rough," Trenton said, rubbing the back of his neck. "Still, there's something to be said for failing and getting back up. You don't really know what you're capable of until something knocks you flat." The translucent one scribbled something on its pad. "So you see value in being overwhelmed?" "Not in the moment," Trenton said. "But after?" "Yeah. You learn." A four-legged alien with compound eyes piped up. "You remained with the injured student in the training hall. You took no action to remove yourself from the distressing environment. Was that not contrary to your survival instincts?" "I wasn't in danger," Trenton said. "Someone was hurt. That comes first." "First before what?" "Before comfort. Before convenience. Before anything." The blue one tapped a claw against the table. "You are not a doctor. You had no tools or expertise. Your presence did not accelerate medical intervention." "Didn't need to," Trenton said. "Sometimes just being there matters." A silence followed, not awkward, but analytical. The kind where every being in the room was cross-referencing 10,000 cultural documents at once. Knock finally spoke. "Would you be willing to assist in a comparative experiment?" "Depends what you mean by assist," Trenton said. "We've prepared a simulation chamber to test species' endurance thresholds under non-lethal stress conditions. The other participants are volunteers. You would not be in danger." "I'm not doing anything that involves electricity or open flames," Trenton said. "And I draw the line at being submerged in anything jelly-like." Knock tapped their console. "Noted." A door opened at the far end of the room. A rolling cart arrived bearing an assortment of monitoring devices. One of the techs, a squat, armored alien with hydraulic limbs, gestured for Trenton to step into the prep area. He stood, peeled off his outer jacket, and followed the tech down a short hall into a room that looked like a cross between a gym and a lab. The floor was padded and the walls were lined with transparent panels showing various readouts. A long bench stood in the center with biometric straps and a flexible restraint harness. "Sit here," the tech said, pointing. "We will calibrate your baseline responses." Trenton sat, letting them fit the bands around his chest and arms. A humming disc lowered from above and hovered near his forehead. "What's this one do?" "Measures cognitive load and latent stress indicators," the tech said. "Do not think of anything emotionally significant." "That's like saying don't picture a pink elephant," Trenton muttered. Readouts flickered to life. Numbers scrolled in alien glyphs, but the color-coded bands were easy enough to interpret. He stayed within the green zone. The tech nodded. "We'll begin now." First stage, thermal discomfort. A panel on the wall opened, and a breeze of warm air started blowing across the chamber. Trenton felt his skin prickle almost immediately. The temperature climbed slowly, methodically. He shifted on the bench, sweat beginning to form along his hairline. "How long does this part last?" Until your dermal receptors indicate distress, the tech said. Or until you request cessation. I'll hang in, Trenton said. The heat climbed. Sweat dripped down his back. His shirt clung to him. He focused on his breathing, keeping it even. The room was quiet except for the hum of the temperature system. At minute 12, the blue alien entered the chamber and observed through a glass partition. Your body is exhibiting hyperthermic symptoms. Yeah, Trenton said, wiping his brow. That's what happens when you get hot. Your species does not possess active thermal sacs or internal cooling membranes. We sweat, Trenton said. That's our thing. The creature tilted its head. This is inefficient. Maybe, Trenton said. But we've been doing it long enough to make it work. At minute 15, the temperature began to drop. A cool mist sprayed gently from the ceiling and Trenton exhaled in relief. Next phase, the tech said. Negative pressure simulation. A ceiling gauge beneath the bench. The air around Trenton's legs was drawn away, creating a vacuum-like sensation. It wasn't painful, just strange, like being pressed from the inside out. What's this testing? Vascular resilience. Trenton grunted. Feeling it. Would you like to disengage? I've had worse, Trenton said, shifting again. A faint chime sounded. The tech released the seal. Trenton's legs tingled as circulation resumed. Final phase, cognitive dissonance induction. I don't like the sound of that. The lights dimmed. A holographic projection lit up the wall across from him, displaying a series of rapidly shifting images, some recognizable, some nonsense. Words, symbols, half familiar sounds. The pace increased steadily. Trenton narrowed his eyes, trying to follow. His pulse picked up. Purpose, he asked. To evaluate mental resilience under incoherent stimuli. He blinked, trying to keep track of a shape that kept morphing like it was laughing at him. You guys really know how to throw a party. The projection ended. Lights returned to normal. The tech helped remove the sensors. Test complete. Trenton stood slowly, knees a little stiff. On a scale of 1 to getting your wisdom teeth pulled, I'd put that at a solid 7. The blue alien entered the chamber. You did not request cessation during any phase. Felt like quitting a few times, Trenton said. But quitting's a habit. I don't collect those. Back in the observation room, Nock handed him a hydration pack filled with something that tasted like cucumber and mint. We would like to request your involvement in a follow-up seminar. Another panel? Trenton asked. Not this time. A cross-species mentorship program. We believe your experiences could provide valuable insight. Trenton leaned against the wall, sipping the drink. You want me to be a guidance counselor for aliens? More of a resilience consultant. He considered it for a moment. All right. But I'm not wearing a name badge. That can be arranged. As he left the room, one of the students from earlier, a small creature with glimmering fur, approached and walked beside him silently for a few steps. Did it hurt? It asked finally. Yeah, Trenton said. All of it. The student looked up. Then why keep going? He smiled faintly. Because I wanted to see what would happen if I didn't stop. They walked on in silence, just long enough for the hall lights to shift into evening mode. The mentorship orientation began 3 days later in a hexagonal room lined with bioreactive panels that adjusted their hue based on the dominant pigment of whoever entered. When Trenton stepped inside, the walls dulled to a neutral gray. The room was quiet, save for the soft rustle of movement from the half-dozen alien students already seated in a loose circle. Some sat cross-legged on cushions, others rested atop low perches or hovered slightly above the floor. Trenton dropped into the only chair that had legs and leaned back with a faint grunt. His arm, still healing from the tattoo, was less swollen now, though the skin remained tender. The plastic wrap was gone, replaced by a thin layer of ointment and gauze under his sleeve. He'd been told the session was informal, a shared acclimation experience, whatever that meant. Nock had assured him it wouldn't be a lecture, but he wasn't convinced. A small, angular student with jointed limbs and a membrane frill around its neck tapped the floor with one digit. We've reviewed the documentation on your species' physical limits. The data does not align with your demonstration last cycle. I figured, Trenton said, resting an elbow on the chair's arm. Most of your intel probably came from hospital records and battlefield footage. Not a lot of people volunteer for pain studies. Next to the frilled alien, a spherical being with a single pupil less eye rotated slightly. You did. I didn't know it was a study when I walked in, Trenton said. I just had an appointment with a guy named Lou and a design I wanted on my arm. The frilled one made a low, oscillating sound. But you allowed observation. You did not revoke consent. Because I don't mind being watched, Trenton said. Not when I'm doing something I believe in. A tall, translucent figure on the far side of the circle lifted a long limb. What did the image represent to you? Trenton hesitated. It reminded me of someone. Someone I lost. The phoenix coming out of a broken moon. It felt right. Loss is not a celebrated concept among our kind, the frilled alien said. It is cauterized. That explains a lot, Trenton said, rubbing the back of his neck. But for us, it's part of life. You don't get through it without losing things. People. Ideas. Even parts of yourself. The spherical one blinked slowly. You mark those losses permanently? Sometimes, Trenton said. Sometimes you carry them invisible. Sometimes you need a reminder you survived. A pause stretched between them. The translucent one shifted slightly, its outline dimming. We were told resilience was a byproduct of conditioning, that your kind trains for hardship. Some do, Trenton said. Others get it the hard way. Life throws stuff at you and you either bend or snap. The frilled student pressed a digit to its chest. My cohort failed a gravitation drill last month. I ruptured 3 tendon cores. I was removed from rotation. Did they help you recover? Physically, yes. But I was disqualified. No reinstatement. Trenton frowned. So you're just out? It is seen as efficient. He shook his head. We don't do that. Not if we can help it. Someone falls, we pull them back up or at least try to. The circle fell quiet again. The spherical one blinked twice. You said before that being present with pain matters. That proximity has value. It does, Trenton said. Pain's not just physical. It's in your head too. And when someone stays with you through that, it makes a difference. The translucent student tilted its head. Then how do you respond to failure? Depends, Trenton said. If it means someone got hurt, you fix what you can. Apologize. Learn. If it's just falling short, you get up and try again. The frilled one let out a brief pulse of color from its membrane. That is not how our evaluations are structured. I'm not trying to rewrite your policies, Trenton said. But maybe think about what you want your people to be. Efficient's great until it leaves someone behind. The door opened behind them. A facilitator entered tall, robed, with a set of rotating lenses for eyes. It adjusted the ambient lighting before speaking. You may now proceed to the applied segment. Each participant will engage with a simulated challenge. Mr. Barley will observe and advise. The student stood. Trenton rose slower, stretching his back. What kind of challenge are we talking about? No physical risk, the facilitator said. Cognitive emotional endurance. All participants will enter the empathy retention chamber. Trenton raised an eyebrow. That sounds vague. You'll see. They followed the facilitator into the next room where a series of platform pods waited. The pods had open tops and were covered in faintly shimmering film. Trenton was led to a central console while the students stepped into their respective pods. Each pod will simulate a scenario involving perceived helplessness, the facilitator explained. The aim is to remain engaged without disengagement reflex. Trenton settled at the console, watching the heart rate and neural activity graphs light up. You ever consider just asking them to talk about a hard memory instead? This method removes conscious filtering. Fair enough, he said, folding his arms. The pods activated. Within moments, the students' vitals spiked. One twitched inside their enclosure, eyes wide. Another let out a low, keening sound. The frilled alien trembled, its limbs curled inward. Trenton glanced at the data screen. They're panicking. Shouldn't someone intervene? They must learn to persist, the facilitator said. Not without support, Trenton muttered, stepping away from the console. He walked to the frilled alien's pod and tapped on the edge. Listen to me. You're not alone in there. Whatever you're seeing, it's not forever. Take a breath and remember where you are. The trembling slowed slightly. Trenton moved to the next one. Hey, you're doing fine. Keep your footing. You're stronger than whatever this thing's showing you. One by one, he circled them, speaking calmly, anchoring them. Not with platitudes, but with presence. When the program ended, the pods powered down and opened. The students emerged slowly, shaken but upright. The spherical one approached him first, voice unsteady. You didn't remove us. You stayed. That's the point, Trenton said. Resilience isn't doing it alone. It's knowing someone's there when you feel like quitting. The facilitator blinked its lenses in sequence. Your method deviated from protocol. Your protocol lacked oxygen, Trenton said, folding his arms. They don't need tests. They need to learn how to fail and still be worth something. The translucent student joined them. We'd like another session. With him. The facilitator hesitated, then nodded. Outside, as the lights shifted toward evening, Trenton stepped into the open courtyard. The air was cooler now, a soft breeze brushing past his still healing arm. He glanced down at the tattoo beneath his sleeve. Still tender. Still there. Knock met him by the perimeter gate. They've asked for you to continue. Voluntarily. I figured. You've changed something, Knock said. Not just in them. I didn't come here to change anyone, Trenton said. I just showed up. Sometimes that's the change. They stood in silence for a long minute, watching students slowly gather under the dimming sky. Then Trenton turned, hands in his pockets. I'll be back next week. Without pain this time? He grinned. No promises,